Do what you gotta do. Because Tariq, if you let me go, I'm gonna go after Tasha. I ain't never gonna stop.
I know. That's why I made sure she's far enough so where you can't track her down.
Now, family was a huge driving force for many of Tasha's maneuvers throughout Power and Power Book 2 Ghost. She was a pillar and a cornerstone to Ghost's early success, and showed she was ready to do what was necessary. She understood what role she had to play and how to protect her family, even when at times, where Ghost may not have necessarily deserved her loyalty. Tasha was able to look past Ghost's flaws for the greater good being for the benefit of his organization, but mostly the safety of their family, although there are many perspectives we can look at where Tasha was also in the wrong. But after she'd lost one child through consequences of the game, we quickly learned she was willing to do anything to make sure she didn't lose another. Tasha worked with Angela, who Ghost was having an affair with, to save Tariq St Patrick, and even went one step further by going to jail to allow Tariq to live his own life. At the age of 19, she was in accounting school, but Ghost took her out of Queens and moved her into the penthouse suite in Tribeca after they got married and had 3 kids, Tariq, Raina, who were twins, as well as Yasmin. But she always retained a key eye for money, even though she may never have finished her education. Her name was on many papers at Truth, and even later helped Tommy launder his money through Lakeisha's hair business. This was also an Easter egg and something we'd later see her revisit at the end of Ghost Season 2 while she was in witness protection, and that's where she remains. Taken to an unknown location, she's been separated from Tariq St Patrick, who now finds himself all alone in a world where he's stuck in the game. But Tasha St Patrick's story isn't over for a number of reasons. So in the rest of this video, we're going to be looking at Tasha's history so far in Ghost, with various characters involved in the Tasha St Patrick case, how Natori Naughton teased a potential return for her character, and then rounding up with some thoughts and theories based on some evidence, facts, and findings as we move closer to Power Book 2 Ghost Season 3. Now, throughout Power, we've seen a familiar theme where one lie covers up another, with the lie being put in a highly complex situation, and that's where Tasha found herself. She was trying to save herself as well as keep Tariq safe, but without revealing the full truth. Although Tamika is a character who is aware of who the St. Patricks were, what they've done, and most importantly, who Tasha was protecting. So this is what most of Season 1 came down to: inheritance. Those inheriting sins from consequences from previous actions, not necessarily their own. Regardless, Tasha really was willing to do anything to protect Tariq, especially when it came to threatening Lorenzo Tejada if he ever hurt Tariq. But on Tamika, she knew everything, and so Tasha couldn't risk Tamika being her lawyer. As we established in the first chapter of this video, Tasha would do anything to protect Tariq St. Patrick. But to protect herself and Tariq, she had to find a lawyer that didn't need the full truth to operate, and that man was Davis McLean. The roles were somewhat reversed, because as much as Tasha was protecting her son, he felt as if it was his duty to help his mother fight this murder charge. A murder charge which turned into a queenpin charge after Tasha name-dropped Tommy in court. She said she was the one who gave the order to kill Ghost, and this was Tasha's mistake. But she didn't have much choice. She couldn't bring herself to name Tariq as the shooter, and Tommy was the only character who was alive that she could name. Dre was dead, and Quinton had an alibi, and so there was nobody else, which is why Tasha will always face an uphill battle, especially with the DNC focused on framing Tasha to keep Ghost's name and their reputation clean. So this was a battle which she wanted to face alone, without putting Tariq on the stand. Ironically, something Tariq refused to do with Yasmin in Season 2. Family protecting family is what we associate with the St. Patricks, especially Tasha and Tariq. So we saw Tasha in a mock trial, where she was back to being Tasha, something we hadn't seen since the end of Power. Now her job was to try and convince this mock jury that she was this battered wife, who had no choice but to kill James St. Patrick, but it didn't look good for Tasha. Tamika, who's one of the great lawyers in Power, put her to the sword, and made Tasha realize it may not be in her best interest to get on the stand. But this is what made this case great: the aspect of law enforcement with Blanca Rodriguez, Cooper Sachs, and the political angle of Rashad Tate. Everybody knew some element of truth, and each of these characters had dirt on everyone, but all of these characters were looking out for what was best for themselves and their career, which made Davis McLean's job that much harder. Now Tasha was in a really difficult position. She was trying to hold it together and stay strong for her family on the outside, but yet showing this vulnerability in jail, because it was hard. She was trying to be there for Tariq St. Patrick on his birthday, and it was just a constant reminder of who she's lost, Raina St. Patrick. But not only was Tasha battling with the loss of one child and a queenpin charge, she was also another character who, like Simon Stern, said Tariq was exactly like Ghost.
This is just like your father. You promised me you would never lie to me, and now look, here we are.
I'm nothing like Ghost. All right, I wasn't lying. I just didn't tell you in order to protect you.
What? Now you even sound like him.
Now, the context and background to this conversation was Tamika Washington. Power have a history of having a character around who knows everything, and Tamika was one of them, which is why she asked Tariq to get rid of Tamika to make sure she doesn't take the stand. And the request that Tasha made of Tariq was insane. In an attempt to save Tariq, she was asking him to commit yet another murder. That's how desperate the situation was. Now, although we know how Tariq is very much capable of pulling the trigger, it wasn't what Tariq wanted to do. Similar to Epiphany when Tasha told Tariq to treat her the same way as they did Slim. But again, showing traits of his father, he paid her to leave instead of pulling the trigger, something ghosted with both Holly and Maria Suarez. And so at different stages of season 1, he was only proving Tasha and Simon Stern right. He was definitely more like his father than he first thought. Now, the game-changing moment in the Tasha St Patrick case came at Ghost's grave, where Tariq admitted in killing Ghost, something which brought McClane and Saxe together. McClane saves his client, but at the expense of Tariq. And this proved one thing: even though Tariq had hired the best defense attorney money could buy, he was someone who looked out for number one, his career and his record, which reaffirms the point I made earlier on. Everybody had dirt on everyone, but using it for their own selfish gain. Now, we can't be too harsh on Davis McClane and Cooper Saxe. They were fighting for the truth and justice. That truth being, Tariq St Patrick was the murderer, and they tried to do so using a few methods, 2-Bit being one of them. And where I mentioned Tamika and Saxe being characters who know everything that are able to connect the dots, so could 2-Bit. But he was a character who cleverly navigated his exit from his prison jumpsuit without being a snitch, an event which irritated Stephen Knott. And this is where we look at the aspect of power, which we can associate with various characters in the series at different stages. And Stephen Knott at the DNC, he had plenty of it. He was the driving force behind the Tasha St Patrick Queenpin charge, which really did cause conflict between Davis McClane and Saxe because of their alliance. Now, away from the case, I mentioned Tariq was just a kid, and as the season went on, we saw him call Tasha after a failed murder attempt from the GTG, but also when Effie came back to town.
How do I work with someone that I can't trust?
Well, after I found out your father was cheating on me, on all of us, I did the next best thing. I got him to trust me.
Tasha was there to give Tariq advice based on her past experiences, and it worked. This is why Tasha was so vital for Tariq in season 1. When he needed someone to lean on and trust, he always had Tasha. Now, when it came to crunch time, Tariq St Patrick took the stand, and with Tamika's help, he was able to blow up the whole case wide open by revealing Saxe was that truth the night of Ghost's murder, which forced Stephen Knott to offer Tasha a deal, named Tommy Egan as the kingpin, and that's exactly what she did. And we all know who would appear at that moment. But before we get to Tommy, this scene is vitally important for what we're about to discuss later on in the video.
Now that I'm out, I'm putting my family back together. But I need him out the business. This has cost my family too much. Can't do it anymore. Can't live my life looking over my shoulder.
This was one mother talking to another. Tasha wanted Tariq out the game. Because of how the game destroyed the St. Patricks, she wanted to save what was left. Ironically, this was all Ghost ever wanted from the beginning of Power, and also something we saw Monet try and do in season 2. But Monet wasn't just about to let Tariq just walk away. She changed the whole business model around Tariq St. Patrick. And as I established in this video, Tariq is Monet's goldmine. But just hold on to that thought of Tasha and Monet. It is something I'm going to come back to in just a moment. Now, this meeting was interrupted by none other than Tommy Egan. He came back to try and kill Tasha for snitching, and she knew the rules of the street, as well as how Tommy was a killer. But despite knowing what Tariq's done, as well as asking him to commit multiple murders while being inside jail herself, this was the moment where it really hit home. Tariq St. Patrick was a monster. In an attempt to save Tasha, Tariq helped Tommy fake his death. But one thing Tariq learned from Kanan was chess. And in chess, they teach you to be 3 moves ahead of your enemy, make your moves, but set traps. And that's what Tariq did. He knew Tommy would never stop coming for Tasha, which is why he had her taken into Witsec, but without Yasmin. Now, season 2 started off with Tariq very much alone. Tasha was in witness protection, but he was constantly looking for a message or some sort of contact, because that's what he had in season 1. Even though Tasha was in jail for pretty much the entire first season, he was able to lean on Tasha for advice and help. We have to remember, even though Tariq is smart and shrewd, and someone who also showed glimpses and traits of his father Ghost, he was still just a kid who made grown man decisions, which is why we shouldn't be feeling too sorry for him. His responsibilities also changed in season 2, because it was his decision to send Tasha into Witsec, so all of this was definitely self-inflicted. So he now had to look after Yasmin, especially after Grandma Estelle turned to alcohol. So instantly, we saw Tariq contact McLean about getting in contact with Tasha, but it wasn't as simple as that. Her location was unknown. Now, battle ensues between Grandma Estelle and Tariq for custody of Yasmin, one where Tariq came out on top, but only for a brief moment. Straight after the victory, he suffered a devastating defeat. We saw him being handcuffed and being taken away in a similar fashion to that of Ghost. This is where Tariq realized, despite him wanting to protect and look after Yaz, he can't do everything himself. So when you're in a situation where you're pretty much fucked, you have to think, what's the best possible play? What is the best possible outcome I can create from this situation? And that's what Tariq did by sending Yaz to live with Tasha while he works on graduating and getting his trust. That's the only way he can now help his family he has left. And so even though we don't see many happy endings in Power, we did see one at the end of season 2, Tasha being reunited with Yasmin. Now, the story of Tasha St Patrick definitely isn't finished. Yasmin still has the phone that Tariq gave to her in episode 3, and so it won't be as difficult to get in contact with Tasha as it was in season 2. Now, just to add some more background and context, on the J Hill Unbothered podcast, which I will leave the link to down below, she asked Natori Naughton, "You're not done with the Power universe then?" And Natori had this to say, "Not exactly. I'll just say, I definitely have some key moments where Tariq will still need his mother, because he's always in some mess. He's always getting into trouble with somebody, so every once in a while, Tasha may have to come in and save him or something. So let's dissect some theories for Power Book 2 Ghost Season 3 and a potential reunion of Tasha and Tariq St. Patrick." Now, Tariq and Tasha haven't exactly been in direct contact since the end of season 1, but reuniting Yasmin with his mom will only give Tariq even more fuel to focus on exiting the game, getting his trust, and getting back to his family. But standing in his way will be the Tejadas, and also a dangerous new connect who we're yet to be introduced to or know anything about. Whether Tariq has any interaction with this new connect is yet to be seen, but it would be best if he stayed away, because we all know how Ghost got trapped under the thumb of Felipe Lobos, Milan, and Jason Michich. But Tariq will need the help of Tasha in some shape or form, especially because he doesn't have anybody else he could trust. There's no trust in the Tejadas. Effie went behind his back with Lauren, and so did Braden, although we do have to remember he did back him in court. So the phone in Yasmin's bag could definitely play a pivotal role, but if Tasha was to return to save Tariq, then he'd have to be under pressure from a major threat. Could that threat be Monet? Could it be Kane? Could it even be Effie or a new connect? Who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised if we did see Tasha come back, similar to how she helped save Ghost many times in Power. Now, it's not that simple for Tasha to just return to New York, because she is in witness protection, so it's more likely we see a few phone calls between Tasha and Tariq, similar to season 1. But if Tasha does reveal herself, it really would be explosive, because it has to be something major for Tasha to come out of WITSEC and reveal herself. But there is a certain someone waiting in the wings to pop Tasha for killing Lakeisha and snitching: Thomas Patrick Egan. Now, we looked at the perspective of Tommy's return through the angle of law enforcement with his potential crossover in my investigation board breakdown, but we didn't look at the perspective of Tasha St. Patrick. Tommy made a promise to never stop coming for Tasha, and that's something we as the audience need to be wary of. It's an unfinished storyline in the Power universe, and one which they eventually have to come back round to. So if Tommy gets wind of Tasha's location, it poses a threat to her own life. But would she be willing to risk her own life to protect Tariq St. Patrick? I think the backstory we went through definitely gives us the answer. So with that being said, it is easy to say Tasha St. Patrick's story isn't over, and even if she does return to save Tariq St. Patrick from a threat, she'll be exposing herself to none other than Tommy Egan, who vowed to never stop chasing Tasha. So I do think it's more likely we see a few phone calls between Tasha and Tariq. But how will the story end for Tasha St. Patrick? Because Tommy Egan, he wants all the smoke.
I want all the smoke.